Right then, Hellraiser Judgement. Is it good? What is my judgment of this film? This will be my review, and I will go into spoilers here, but I want to kind of give you an insight into how I'm viewing the movie first, and also how long it's been since I've watched it, just to give you a bit of an insight into, again, showing you that this wasn't a split-second reaction. I am a fan of the franchise, and what I did was I chose to sleep on it and really give it a bit of thought to why I like this film or why I dislike this film first and foremost, and to be able to give you an unbiased reaction, basically. And how I'm viewing this film is as a soft reboot. It isn't, strictly speaking, a clear-cut continuation of the franchise. Absolutely not. If anything, it really kind of disregards the last movie, which it should, because the last movie is absolute garbage. So it doesn't acknowledge the last movie, but it doesn't disregard it entirely. The elements are similar-ish, but it doesn't acknowledge it. It does, however, more acknowledge the first few movies. So in my eyes, I'm viewing this as a soft reboot. There are expansions to the mythos. There are acknowledgements of the original films, and they push it forwards. So when I'm doing this review, just bear that in mind, that I am looking at it as a soft reboot. It's not a clear-cut continuation. It is not a sequel to the last film. As I say, it is more than anything a soft reboot. Now, should you watch this film? Yes. I will go out on a limb here and actually say yes, if you view it from the perspective as a soft reboot. Now, no one's going to be happy because everyone wants Doug Bradley back in the role of Pinhead. So for everyone that, immediately isn't happy because of that, this film isn't for you anyway. Don't go and watch it. It's pointless. You're never going to be happy. Does the new Pinhead do a pretty good job, and should you watch this film? Yes. Yeah, you should, if you view it as a soft reboot. Now, what is the story, and how do they push it forward, and how is this all kind of acknowledged in the first few films, and how does it move, and where does it sit in the mythos? So, in the opening scene, we have the Auditor and Pinhead, and they're talking about the lament configuration, the box, the means to summon, the conduit, the doorway between hell and earth, and the Cenobites' realm and humans' realm. And they're talking about the box and how, formerly people would seek desire and, end up with the box, and that is how they would open the world, and the Cenobites would move forward and claim their souls. And they're also referencing the fact that now people can, access their sickest desires and most sadistic pleasures via the click of a button, basically, acknowledging the internet in some respects. And what they do is they hatch a plan, basically, to move forward and capture people's souls a different way. Summon people to them via a different means. And what that means is by sending them a letter, which is the Auditor's job, I would presume, because we see his typewriter later down the line anyway. Now, the story centers around two detectives. They're brothers. They're following a case, a serial killer that is killing in the Lord's name. The Preceptor. He is doing the 10 Commandments, basically. And this is how we see the kind of brutal element to the Hellraiser film. We see quite gruesome murder scenes. They're not done in an overly gratuitous way. We don't see it for that long. It does serve the story. And it's not overly torture porn, which I like and I appreciate. And it does actually lead to a really good scene that was rumoured before the movie was released, with a dog. And I will just say, this is a spoiler review anyway, so I will just say straight from the outset that the woman that is killed used to view the dog as her child, as her baby. So what the murderer did was put the dog inside her womb. And that leads to quite an interesting scene, where obviously a dog gets pulled out of a woman's stomach and is, covered in blood. It's not that gross. It's not what it was made out to be in the news. So I stand corrected on my video, which I did. And like I say, all of the murder scenes are quite good. It's murder, so it's not, is it tasteful? I guess. It's done in a sort of tasteful way. It's not gratuitous torture porn, basically. It's nothing like the last movie, which, everyone will probably be happy about. So we follow these two detectives chasing down the Preceptor. One of the detectives seems to be suffering from PTSD. He's an alcoholic. So another detective gets put on the case to not only assess this guy, but also, help them obviously find the killer. Now, what happens is they get closer to the serial killer and they potentially find where he lives. They find a letter which was obviously sent by the auditor. Now, the detective, the one with PTSD and alcoholism, chooses to go and, go to the house, go to where this guy's been invited to. And he gets strung up. And this is where we get a really nice expansion to the mythos. They get put in a chair, and they have tubes going into their bloodstream, into their veins. And this is wired up to the auditor's typewriter. So when he's typing up your sins, and he's discussing your life, and he's asking you these questions, it is written in your blood. Which I liked. I really did quite like that. I'm not sure what it's written on, whether it is paper or whether it is people's skin. I would like to think it's people's skin, but who knows. So it gets written in your blood, and then what happens is that then gets passed on to the assessor, who is basically just a big fat guy, and he eats the piece of paper, and essentially that is a conduit to your sins. So he feasts on your sins, which is quite an interesting expansion to the mythos. He then regurgitates what he's eaten, which I guess is his assessment of your sins, and that gets then taken to the jury, which then obviously give a decision, and then you get taken to the surgeon, who basically just cuts you up. Now, this is all quite interesting. It's not a bad expansion to the mythos. It works inside this soft reboot version of the franchise anyway, and I liked it. I'm not going to say I loved it, but I definitely didn't hate it. And I will say this from the outset as well. The auditor is played by Gary J. Tunnicliffe, which is the director of the film. And he was great. He was really good. I actually really liked his performance. And I would love to see the auditor, played by him, again. I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was fantastic. So the detective goes through this whole process, but he gets stopped at the jury. Because when the assessor eats his sins, eats his life on paper form anyway, he starts to vomit up black substance. And this then summons, this is where a lot of controversy will happen. I can hear it now, an audible gasp from everyone listening. This then summons an angel to the house, to this otherworldly dimension Cenobites have taken up. And the angel says to the auditor, release him. Release this detective. He's, I want him put back on Earth now. And the auditor goes, look, I can't stop the process. The jury is making a decision now, and he's obviously hurt the assessor. I can't. Why? Why do you want him put back on Earth? And the angel pushes forward and says, no, put this guy back on Earth now. I want him back on Earth. And this obviously puts a bit of a struggle between hell and heaven, I guess, in some respects. And the auditor runs off to Pinhead, who hasn't actually done that much in the story as yet, which is good. That's not a bad thing, because if we remember back to the first and second, they are just a looming presence. They don't really do that much. And that's how they should be. They shouldn't really do that much, because then when they do stuff, that has a higher impact. And that's when you go, yes, the Cenobites are here. They're doing stuff. So he runs off to Pinhead and says, look, he needs to be put back on Earth, we've been told. And Pinhead goes, yep, that's fine. He's going to be back anyway. So, okay, that's interesting, I guess. So the auditor runs off to then, put the guy back, but he's escaped. Not really that important, but he's back. And he goes and calls his brother, the detective, and they then go back to the house and find that it's empty, because obviously it's a different dimension when the Cenobites are there. And the story progresses. They chase down the preceptor, the serial killer, a little bit more. And this is where the big reveal and the kind of big twist happens, is that the preceptor is the detective, is the alcoholic PTSD suffering detective. And it's not a good reveal. I will say this, I didn't like it, but it makes sense. I mean, who would make the best serial killers in the world? Detectives and, people that are trained to hunt down these people. Of course they would make the best murderers. So it is what it is. He is the serial killer, and it culminates in this detective telling his brother and his wife, who was going to be the last commandment because she committed adultery when this guy went on his first tour of duty. So that's how he's suffering PTSD anyway. And he tells his brother and his wife to open the box, because he takes one of the boxes when he disappears, when he escapes the house. And they summon the Cenobites. So Pinhead was right, he will be back. And the Cenobites arrive, Pinhead and the auditor arrive. And the detective, again, kind of a throwback to the other films, goes, I've got a deal for you. I know you want my soul, but I've got these two for you here. So my soul for these two. And it opens up some interesting quotes here from Pinhead. You know, it's not a bad performance from Paul T. Taylor, actually. I thought his performance was okay. Like I say, it's not going to please everyone because everyone wants Doug Bradley. But he's old. He's never going to look good as Pinhead anymore. You have to get over it. It's one of those sad facts. So treat it as a soft reboot. Paul T. Taylor's performance was not that bad. The voice worked. I liked it. And it opens up some good quotes from Paul T. Taylor. You know, no, that's not how it works. And it works. I think it looked quite good. I think his voice was good. I think his performance was quite good. His outfit was pretty much in keeping with the original Pinhead, but there was you can see some rib cage, which you couldn't see on the original Pinhead. So there is that to note. But all in all, not that bad. And he then strings up the detective because obviously he's sick of hearing this crap. He's sick of, you know, this nonsense of trading souls. And then he kills, obviously, the detective's brother and his wife because he shows no mercy. Why shouldn't he? These people have sinned anyway, so it doesn't matter. So he kills them, and then the angel arrives. The angel demands that he puts Pinhead, you know, he puts the detective back. That Pinhead drops the detective back on Earth. Now, Pinhead is not dumb. Pinhead is smart. He knows that the detective beat the living crap out of one of the other detectives that had, you know, stumbled upon him. And she was still there on Earth, still waiting. And if he was put back, she would kill him. So he does as he's asked, and he puts him back, and he gets killed straight away. This obviously leads to the angel being pretty annoyed with Pinhead. And this is our kind of culmination and our badass moment of the film. You know, she goes, look, you know, you will suffer for this. There'll be hell to pay. And obviously you don't say that to the Hell Priest because that's not smart. And the Hell Priest then decides to string up this angel and pull her apart, kill her. And this then closes the film with an interesting throwback to the kind of original movie, I guess. Well, the second movie anyway, where these Cenobites were humans, I guess. It's not explicitly explained, but because of this transgression, God interferes and makes them human again. And that's where the film closes. Now, I will say some highlights of the film. The performances from Pinhead, I liked it. Like I say, it's not going to please everyone. Gary J. Tunnicliffe was great. I'd love to see him again. I thought it was fantastic. The expansion to the mythos, the auditor, the assessor, the jury, and the cleaners and the surgeon, etc. I liked all of that. It does make sense to the soft reboot that they've done. So I liked it. I didn't think it was bad at all, in fact. Now, the kind of detective storyline, I didn't overly enjoy. It's not bad, but it suffers because of the budget. The performances from the detectives were fine. Again, it wasn't that bad at all. It was pretty good performances. It wasn't bad, right? But where the film suffers is, you know, because it is direct-to-video, they don't give it a good budget. However, I do think this is one of the better of the films. In my eyes, this sits number 4 for me. It isn't a bad film at all. But like I say, it's not going to please anyone that is looking for, you know, a Doug Bradley style performance. It's just not, because those people are never going to be satisfied. But if you view this movie as a soft reboot and a expansion to the mythos and kind of a trying to push it forward in a new direction, I think you're going to have a much better time with it. And also as well, I would say that if you're a fan of the franchise, sit on it before you make a decision. Because there were elements that I really loved in this film, and there were elements that I really hated. But I think it was my bias to the original franchise which made me hate those other elements. Chatterer was great. There were some issues with his teeth not moving when he was chattering, so that was a bit of an issue. The other Cenobites, again, they're not explained, they're just kind of there, and I like it. It's kind of that showing but not telling, which the first few movies had, and I like that. I think that is really, really good. It's kind of going back to the original, but also trying to push it forward. Now, where can they go from here? Obviously, you know, Pinhead is on Earth, because you see Paul T. Taylor without any makeup on at the end, just, you know, like a deranged man talking about eternal sweet suffering and stuff like this. And obviously it kind of opens it up to the potential that he will then try and find a box and open it up again. It does leave it open to a sequel, and I like that. I would be open to seeing a sequel. Definitely not adverse to that in any shape or form. Now, this has been a long review, but this is a long anticipated film for me, and I hope you've stuck in there, and I hope you've enjoyed this review. Like I say, if you like the franchise, watch the film with the open kind of mind that it is a soft reboot. If you're one of these people that only likes Doug Bradley, just save yourself an hour and a half and don't watch the film, because you're not going to be happy. And I say that with the greatest of respects. You're never going to be happy. You should probably just stop watching Hellraiser films. So, did I like it? I did. Is it great? Is it absolutely outstanding? No. Could it have been better? Yes. But I think they've done really, really well with the budget they were given. So, if you've seen the film, drop your comments down below in the comment section. If you haven't seen the film, what did you think of this review? Are you looking forward to it based off of this review? And as always, guys, I have been Mr. H. Until next time, I will catch you in the comment section.